There was a notion that I believed that Rose from Titanic was one of the most selfish beings in cinema.
I used to genuinely agree with Reddit posts that Rose was the true villain.
But everything that you know about Titanic, I promise you, it's all a lie. So I decided to just randomly watch Titanic, and honestly, it was going to be a hate watch, trying to get that propaganda off. But the more that I watched it, the more that I started to realize that the hate around one specific character may not even be that justified. Now, I'm assuming that you've already watched, because I don't want to have to explain an almost 30-year-old movie. Let's really get into the meat and potatoes. It's funny because we start off the voyage with an insane quote from Rose.
To me, it was a slave ship taking me back to America in chains.
What do you mean by that?
It's just even funnier because she's a ginger. Seriously though,
One of the most notable romance movies that the older and newer generation would know would have to be Titanic. A movie that showcases a lifetime connection and one of the greatest sacrifices. A heartwarming but heartbreaking story of love. But was it all a facade?
I can't even act like you wasn't moving crazy throughout the film. Bitch, if you don't move over and let this man get on whatever y'all are floating on so both of y'all can survive,
Man, sitting here freezing to death in the Arctic water.
what do you mean? You're just gonna throw a necklace worth millions while actively a group of people are spending millions to try to find this necklace just for the vibes. Just cause, you know, it felt right. Don't get me wrong, your fiance was a piece of shit, but we condoning cheating? Especially with a man that you just met 2 days ago? You're just gonna jump off the lifeboat that people are actively fighting and would have killed for to be in your position? Rose was a character that was rebellious, impulsive, and yes, made selfish decisions. So you're probably wondering, what would even make me have a change of heart towards a woman that was moving like a teenager? Turns out she was indeed a teenager, and her fiance was 30. So you're telling me that this 17-year-old girl is being pushed, I'll say forced, by her mom to marry a egotistical, abusive snob while also facing the pressure of leaving a situation that could change your life and your family's financially, especially during this time when you were expected as a woman to just shut up and do what you were told. That was the norm when they didn't have a voice back then. Her options was legit: marry Diddy or be happy.
Even though the necklace that she just threw in the water that she had been holding on to for 80 years could have still helped her financially without her having to deal with this abusive snob. No, we're not gonna get into that. We're not.
Jack's character symbolizes the key to the chains of a draining life. And of course, I disagree with a lot of actions that Rose was doing in this movie, but I really don't know how many 17-year-olds are going to make the best decisions in these life-altering moments. Why did nobody talk about this 30-year-old man being with a 17-year-old? Did she let Jack die? Dun, dun, dun. After the Titanic sinks and everybody's just floating in the water, fighting to survive, the movie shows that Jack and Rose, they both tried, or at least attempt, to stay afloat on whatever this wooden piece of debris is in the water. And they quickly realized that both of them wouldn't have been able to stay on it without it sinking.
Now, maybe they could have just rotated or found another debris in the water that was floating to help maybe both of them survive, but I've never had to fight hypothermia, so I'm not really sure what I would even be thinking in that moment.
And yes, we could sit here and argue about the realistics of what they could have done, but the director's motive here is to showcase something that is deeper. The director, James Cameron, has stated that he wanted audiences to take away a message of absolute pure love. And what better way to showcase unconditional love is through sacrifice. And that's not a strange concept for us to accept. We see it all the time. People sacrifices the things that they like to do or want to do to make their partner happy. Even in Christianity, we see Jesus sacrificing himself on the cross as the absolute example of love. Jack's love is measured by the sacrifice. And the director states that Jack needed to die for the message to be completed throughout the film. Another interesting point that the director said is that he argued that if Jack would have lived, the ending would have been meaningless. His death cements the tragic nature of the story. Even though Jack was not a perfect person, in the mind of Rose, he always will be. And it would honestly be super unrealistic to think that if they both survived and continued a life together, that things couldn't go sour. And I know it sounds crazy to say that Jack needed to die, but his death makes a big bigger statement than him surviving. Just imagine after Titanic, Jack and Rose being in this toxic Blueface and Krishan Rock type of relationship. So yes, Shorty did a lot of things that I did not necessarily agree with, but when you take into account all of these other factors, the age, the environments and situations that she's being forced into, I can give you grace. Now, it was kind of crazy when Shorty was like, "I'll never let you go," as she's letting go and his body is just floating. But I don't know, there was something about when I rewatched this film that the reality of everything just really started to settle in. It's the reality that this 17-year-old girl who was forced into this relationship, she never experienced what love was and is figuratively chained to an egotistical EDP and finally stumbles upon a real relationship, I'm assuming for the first time. And then even in that, she's only able to encapsulate this feeling for a few days before she watches him freeze to death in this Arctic water in front of her face while holding her hand, while she also fights for her life. It's the reality of her having to live with the sacrifice that he made and the images that's forever scarred in her brain. But even outside of the fictional story between Jack and Rose, it sets in even more when you realize even though these two did not exist, the Titanic had real people on it with real families, real couples. This was a real event with real people. This was an actual tragedy that took place. And it's even crazier, and I did like research, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, that in real life, the captain was warned multiple times by other ships, and instead he chose to go full speed. I did see certain people say that this is an overrated film, and honestly, I disagree. I see why the film, especially for the romance genre, is so notable. The way that they're able to blend the tale of telling two different stories in the past and the future while making you fall for this fictional story between Jack and Rose and slowly starting to realize how crazy it actually was for the people on that ship. Now, I cut Rose some slack this video, but romance, I got my foot on your neck. I still gotta get another Yap session off.